Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Blast.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish. They're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam! Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
And I'm Scott Wakefield, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we talk about comic books and all kinds of great storytelling, sometimes with incredible guests. And we want you to join us Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, everybody. I'm Curtis Fujita, and this is Silver Sunday, Silverline Comics weekly live stream video. So we're here to talk about comics and all sorts of different things. But before we start, we'll go around and have everybody introduce themselves. So let's go ahead and let's start with Roberta Conroy. Roberta,
hello.
Tell everybody about yourself.
Hi, I'm a graphic designer and coloring for Silverline Comics for the past year, I guess. And this has been really fantastic because I started working in comics in the 90s, and I was with Malibu Comics. That's where I got to know Roland Mann, our chief. And we had a blast back then. And I'd have to say that I had wanted to get back into comics for a long time, and this was the perfect time for me. So that's me. I've been a graphic designer, art directing magazines and all kinds of random things in the meantime, but always keeping art on the side. So as long as I'm working and drawing, I feel like, this is a great space to be creative right now.
Definitely. And we're so happy to have you here and be part of the team and reunite after all these decades. So let's
I know.
So let's go. I'm going to C. Michael Lanning. C. Michael, please feel free to tell everybody about yourself.
All right, I'm C. Michael Lanning, independent artist. I've done work, of course, with Silverline and the upcoming Rejects. You can see right there on the screen. That's one of our characters from Rejects coming up. And then also Arrow Comics, working on Calico of the Shard. Plus, I've got a couple of covers coming up from some indie projects soon. Look for that. And that's about it right now.
All right, very good. Thank you. And I'll go ahead and reintroduce myself and give a couple details before we move on with the show. So again, my name is Curtis Fujita. I'm the creative director at Silverline Comics. And also, I'm also a martial arts instructor for my online martial arts school, Tiger Crane Kung Fu. And so I'm combining both passions, and I have my own comic book coming out for Silverline called Shadow Ghost. It's the Kung Fu comic by a Kung Fu master, and I'm writing and drawing it. So that's me. And thanks everybody for joining us. We'll just kind of get that before we get down to brass tacks. We'll just talk a little bit about what's going on and give some updates on things. You'll notice that we're a few members shy. Usually, our fearless leader Roland Mann is here, as well as Tommy Flormonte and a whole bunch of people. They are at our sponsor Daytona Beach Comic Con right now, and you can go ahead if you can see all the cool stuff that we've been doing online with it. But Daytona Beach Comic Con, so many of our Silverline crew have come from all over the U.S. to it. And from what I can see, it looks like it was a really successful, really great show. So we want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting it. And we really appreciate that. And
I got this in the mail today.
Oh, somebody
actually 2 days ago.
Let me. I'm producing the show, so let me. Cut
My first comic with Silverline printed.
Yes.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Cool.
This is very cool.
And that's Champion Silverline Team Up, Champion and Mystery, right?
Yep.
Colored by Roberta, illustrated by Peter Clinton, written by Roland Mann. And what's really cool is it's funny you just showed that.
Yep.
I also have my copy right here. With my Silverline exclusive Dean Zachary cover.
Of course.
Right?
Yay.
Oh, okay.
I love that one too.
It doesn't turn out pretty good too. And then on the back is Bear, or as we say out here in California, Bear. And written again by Roland Mann and illustrated by Haley Martin. So thanks everybody for supporting that. And we really appreciate it. And let's real quick, it looks like we already have a couple comments. We'll answer them, and then we'll give a couple more updates, and we'll get down to the. Okay, look who's here. I guess the mustache is popular. John Martin says, "Hi kids, Curtis growing that mustache." Exactly. You know, that way I can do that thing. You know, where I'm planning evilly, I can kind of just twirl it like that. That's the end goal,
with
right?
the Dick Dastardly kind of.
Exactly. And as most of you know, John Martin, one of our stellar inkers on our team, and John was at Daytona Comic Con. Looks like he looks like John got a lot of stuff given out to people, handed out, sold a lot of nice pieces. I saw Uncle Iroh from Last Airbender, I think, with Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, which I thought was perfect.
That was cool.
That's pretty cool, right? So good on
Mew
you.
Mew. I can't ever pronounce it. Mew Mew.
Mew, exactly. And Stephen Brown, hey Stephen. Stephen says, actually, you know, I can do something. Stephen Brown says hi. And nice.
Hey,
Hi,
Steven.
Hello.
Good to see you. And I think he added something. Oh, here he is. Got to see Shang-Chi. Really awesome movie. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Good. Very good movie. Excellent. Well, good to have everybody here. And as always, just a reminder for everybody. In fact, I'm producing, so I'm going to throw it over to Roberta. We do have a merchandise store, and Roberta is going to go ahead and demonstrate the official mug of Silverline Comics. As you can see.
Silverline.
Yes, with mouse on it.
I love this mug.
Yeah.
Black handle, but that's totally custom.
Exactly. And it just tastes better when it's in a Silverline mug, doesn't it?
It does.
Oh, I see, John. I see some people hopping in. Oh, let's welcome our guests. Oh my gosh! All right.
Look at that!
We're gonna go one at a time here. We have the artistic Viking, John Martin. Say hi to everybody, John. All right, I think you heard me.
I think we got an echo, John.
Maybe an
I
echo.
turned mine all the way down.
Okay, next up is our intern supreme, Dante. Hello, everybody. Oh my gosh, it's a veritable cornucopia of Silverline. Oh wait, and
Look at that! Oh no, the whole table.
There's a
Yay.
John. Oh, there's a John.
the man,
and rolling back there.
John Medic the Third.
Hi.
Big fan of Cobra La 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 La.
Yay, Scott Wakefield, I saw.
Yeah, and up next, the Empress.
Hi.
Bob Tailberg. Only one of us.
Yeah.
And the man who exemplifies Team Patriots, Scott Wakefield. And I'm gonna meet you folks.
Hey, I'm now on the show.
Oh my goodness.
You are.
And
You
there's
sound like
Roland
an
Man.
announcer.
All right,
All
we're gonna let
This corner.
for a minute. All right, sorry guys. All right, and Roland, maybe you can tell everybody how the con went.
So we have had a blast at this con, Daytona Beach Comic Con. This is just our after convention hanging out at the dinner WCA.
Everybody's standing in their own little corners like they're bad.
And we're all kind of spreading out so we don't get the echoes.
Great.
But we're sitting here, we're going, hey, look, the stream has started. We should all at the same time and overwhelm Curtis, who's this is his first time to produce.
Yes, this was a surprise.
Yeah, what's the stash there going on, Curtis?
Oh, it's a filter. I'm accidentally using Snapchat. I don't know if you realize that. Snapchat is what we're using now, right? For this stuff.
Hey, is that C? I can't see. Who's the one with no camera? See Mike. What's up, C? What's up, Berta?
Hey.
Well,
looks like
maybe if everybody's cool, because I'm trying to avoid the echo, I'm muting everybody, but I'm going to use my producing skills. I'm going to go around to each person, and in one word, you can give your one-word description of Daytona Beach Comic Con. How's that sound?
What?
One word description of Daytona Beach Comic Con.
So let's start with Roland. Roland, you're up first.
It would one word. Amazing.
just one word.
Amazing. We'll say one sentence. I think that's fair. One sentence. All right. Next
One word.
Human. Next is John Martin. John, one sentence. How would you describe Daytona Beach Comic Con?
Who? You, Martin. Fun.
Right. I like that. All right, Mr.
More
Dante.
descriptive fun. What is this?
Dante Berry. How would you describe Daytona Beach Comic Con?
A great time.
Great time. That's good. And up next, again, the Empress of Inks herself, Barb Kaelberg. Barb, how would you describe
I already answered. I said human.
Wow.
Human.
Humid.
Humid. All right. And Scott Wakefield, how about yourself?
Me, yes. I get a sentence. I'll get 2 words. A blast. How's that?
Blast. Very good. And last but definitely not least, and I hope his one-word description is Cobra la 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 la, Mr. John Medic. John, how would you describe it?
If I had to sum it up in one word, I'll go camaraderie.
Camaraderie.
That's cool.
Excellent. Very good. Well, Stephen Brown wanted to let all of us know that he missed a chance to go to Daytona Comic Con, but hopefully he gets the chance next time. So, agreed. I think I'm in that boat too. I think we all would like to be there. So, and I'm going to pull Roland. I think Roland's
We just
talking.
wanted to come harass y'all a little bit.
Okay, well,
Love it. I'm so glad you did.
We'll let you guys get back to it. Great to see you folks, and keep having fun. Okay, guys.
See y'all later. And
Wait,
remember,
can I get a make mine so
camera.
Have a great session
Yeah, there you
tonight.
go.
There we go. Make mine Silverline. All right, take care, folks.
Bye, y'all. Take care. Have a great night.
Have a good one.
I like that.
Look at them all signing out. That's awesome. Well,
That was so fun.
that was pretty
I'm
cool.
so jealous. It looks like normal life.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It
Right?
does.
Very good. Well, awesome. Oh, and we have Inframan said. Oh, sorry, Infrafan. I'm sorry, Infrafan said, "Man, who's not here?" Well, I think us three. But I'd like to think that we're there in spirit. So, very good. Well, before we get down to our subject's actually going to be influences. What are our influences as far as comic books, creating all sorts of stuff? But before we get to that, I want to remind everybody that we do have a campaign right now on Kickstarter and Indiegogo for Kalis. Kalis is an amazing series by Brent Larson. I've been fortunate to be one of the editors on it. It's stellar. I always say Kalis is like Captain America, Winter Soldier, meets X-Files. Okay, and
Whoa.
yeah, it's a great book, and the best part about being the editor is I get to read it before anybody else. So how cool is that? So real quick before we get into it, let's just go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and show the video that talks a little bit about our Kalis Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaign, and would love you folks to back it up. So I'm going to go ahead and start that now.
Hi, welcome to the crowdfunder for Kalis. I'm Roland Mann, and I run Silverline, the genre-spanning independent comic and graphic novel publishing company. And I'm here to tell you about Kalis. So come with me, let me tell you the story.
Hey everybody, my name is Brent Larson. I'm the creator and writer of the Silverline comic book Kalis. We very successfully launched issues 1 and 2 in the last couple of years. And I'm really excited to announce that in September we're going to be launching issues 3 and 4 simultaneously. The story is about Scott Anders, an astronaut who went up into space in the 60s on a mysterious mission for the CIA before disappearing. But he has reemerged today, seemingly not having aged and also a little bit invulnerable. In this story, in issues 3 and 4, you'll learn more about where he came from, why does he want to go back, who's the group that's trying to keep him here on Earth, and also what the word Kalis actually means. I'm sorry it took me so long. Some of you are thinking, hey man, that's a really long time to wait around for a comic book story to wrap up, to which I say, I totally agree, which is why we're also going to be launching a trade paperback that has all 4 issues in it. I hope you enjoy this story, and I know you'll enjoy Louis and Leandro's art. As always, it is gorgeous. I love it. So thank you again for your interest and for your support, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.
Science fiction, action, super stuff. You're going to want to check it out because you love that kind of stuff. You know you do. If you're new to Silverline, I got information I got to tell you. We've run 11 Kickstarters and successfully printed, shipped, and fulfilled all 11 of them. In fact, we're only like 2 weeks away from fulfilling our 12th one. So we know how to do this. We know how to make comic books. We know how to print them. We know how to ship them. In this day and age of unfulfilled crowdfunders, both on Indiegogo and on Kickstarter, I need to let you know that. You guys need to know that your pledge is secure with us because we're going to get you the content. Now, we hope you like the stuff, but we're going to get it to you. So please consider backing Kalis because you're going to get some cool stuff. And if you can't back, please consider sharing it. If you like comics, put this into the hands of folks that you know who like comics. We love comics, we love making comics, and we love you reading the comics that we make. And remember to make mine Silverline.
All right, and we're back. So again, Kalis on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. This is our first time on Indiegogo, and the cool thing is you can even buy all 4 books in the trade paperback format. That's a graphic novel, so check it out. All right, folks. So let's get into the topic of the show, which is influences, and also real quick, Roberta, I don't know if you were able to share any of your coloring, or if you were.
Well,
ready.
I realized I never finished the double-page spread from Cat and Mouse. So
okay.
Yeah, so that would be perfect for me to bring up. So I'm getting it ready right now.
All right, excellent.
Nice.
So while she's getting that ready and pulling that up, again, we're going to talk tonight about our influences. And so let's start with kind of the broadest one, and the one that's most in line with this live stream, which is comic books, or comic book creating. So I want to ask you folks, what are your thoughts about what would you say are your biggest influences in terms of your work as a creator in comic books? And also in the chat, feel free to chime in for everybody watching too. So, see, Michael, who would you say are some of your influences, or not just the people, but the books or things that influence you in your work?
Oh my gosh!
No pressure.
No, that's it. Well, because the bad thing about influence is, for me as a creator, is sometimes it's not just 1 or 2 people or people in the past, or it depends on the time of what I'm working on, or what have you. You know, so. It's really hard to kind of pinpoint. I would,
maybe early on, like what would be some of the books that kind of inspired you to actually kind of take up the the mantle of working?
Let's say I came up in the era, of course when Image was starting to come around, right before Image was turning around, the Marvel Superstar era or whatever it was. So that was going on, but of course, honestly, as far as getting into comic books, it would have to be Saturday morning and afternoon cartoons.
Yeah.
To be completely honest with you, I came up. You had X-Men. Of course, I think X-Men came out a little bit later. You had Spider-Man, that also came out later. But I was a lot into the Disney afternoon stuff, and I love the Disney Disney Adventures that they used to have in the right there at the checkouts and everything. So
yeah.
I was a big Darkwing Duck fan. I guess maybe Darkwing Duck was a big influence. I mean, it goes back because I remember Super Friends when I was younger than that. So
yeah,
my love of comic books started with TV. Yeah, and then you kind of move into it, and as far as books that really. I take so much from different stuff. It's really hard to really pinpoint any books that necessarily influence me. So, some of the Spirit of Vengeance stuff that was going on during the 90s, some of that artwork in there was really cool. And of course, I don't do anything like it, but it was really neat. Of course, a lot of the X-Men comics. Yeah. I remember the Jim Lee, the big Jim Lee X-Men #1 that came out when it came out. So. And and I guess really one of the things that did influence me because you didn't really have a comic book shop where I was.
And where were you growing up? I mean,
I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay, all right.
I mean, it's city, but not city enough, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. The comic book shops here usually had a short lifespan. So, but of course, we also had newsstands which had comic books and things like that, but that's where you would go to find like movie adaptation comics, things like that, Jurassic Park or what have you. But Wizard played a big part as far as me moving into art, because there was such a collection of different stuff there at that time that you got to see all the artists at once, and you didn't have to necessarily have one book that you had to follow. So yeah.
Did you read Brutes and Babes by Bart Sears?
Oh, look, not only that, I think I actually have Bart Sears' book on PDF that he came out with that he re-released some of it.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, I like Bart. All right.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, Brutes and Babes was Bart Sears, comic book artist Bart Sears, had a really neat kind of, it was like maybe a couple pages or a page or so about how to draw for superheroes in the back of every Wizard magazine for quite some time. And for those of us that were kind of coming up in the game or aspiring to get to it, he gave some really cool knowledge on anatomy and how to make things dynamic and stuff like that. And, it was really cool. So that's
it's probably the best part of the book.
Yeah, probably. Well, I would say as far as you could read, like you're saying, you could read that part now and it would still be relevant, right?
Right.
And
right.
So Bart Sears, tip of the hat to Bart Sears. So
because he did a lot of the covers for Wizard too. So
he did, and I found out years later he did the character designs for. I don't know if you remember, there was a toy line called Cops.
Oh, COPS.
That makes sense.
I can see that.
Yeah, so that was all Bart Sears. Everything he did looks sturdy and like big,
I think one thing one of those chapters in that book, he says, "I'm going to talk about back muscles, but you're going to think I'm going to say you don't need to show that many back muscles. I'm saying there's not enough back muscles."
I've never heard an artist sound more like a bodybuilder than that statement.
But I think Greg Capullo later on kind of took over that mantle and had a couple like 6 lessons in there as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I mean that was way later on, way 98, maybe 99, something like that.
And well, before we kind of continue on, Roberta's going to be
Yeah.
doing some art for us
Gonna-
today, and I'm going to throw it up on the stream. We're just going to go. We'll make it full right now. And
Sure.
Roberta,
Let
maybe
me
you can kind of
back
describe
up a little.
Yeah. If you could zoom out and kind of describe to everybody what we're looking at, and
I wasn't quite ready.
Oh, I'm sorry.
with my where I put my Wacom and everything. So I'm a little still adjusting. Anyway, this is a cat and mouse page. It's a splash page that's pretty awesome.
That's great.
And I just had started the backgrounds, and I just barely finished getting the flat colors down. So like I've only rendered a little bit. So you get to see more of it today.
Looks
And
great.
this is great.
That's Mouse Kicking Demon.
Kicking butt. Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
And this is penciled by Wubba Fett. And who did the inks on this? Was this Barb or Tommy or?
Don't kill me. This is Barb.
This is Barb.
This is Barb.
This is definitely Barb Gelberg.
This is very Barb. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. That's great. Look at that.
Yeah, I love the inks that she does. I love working with her. So
sure.
This is a great team.
And I always say it, but I don't think I ever say it enough. When your colors are amazing. I love when you look at one of Roberta's pages and her colors. Immediately, you know what time of day it is, and not just by like the angle of the light source, but by the type of color tone and everything. You're just so good at kind of making that distinction, and it looks great. Great work.
I like the grass. See the grass?
Yeah.
Just kind of add it with the different colors.
Yeah, I tried to make it a little more like, graphic and not so, and not so like individual blade kind of feel, but just give it some texture.
Absolutely. And Roberta started back in the 90s when those of us were at Malibu started, and there was a time where people were a little too fond of kind of the bad part of computer art, where I could see somebody just getting like a weird flat texture of grass and just slapping that on there.
And they did do that.
and yes, they did. and I'm happy to say that's one thing from the 90s that we have not carried over with the current iteration of Silverline and Roberta. I agree with C. Michael. It's cool because you also kind of have it kind of disappearing in the background, the details, kind of gives it that depth. So that's awesome.
Cool.
Well, good. Excellent. Well, you guys everybody, you can enjoy looking at that as we kind of go on. So, again, we were talking about influences. Roberta, how about for yourself? What would you say are some of your influences, whether it's people or books or?
Okay, well, I hate to not go back to the past, but like I am in love with the What If series right now that Marvel's doing with that dramatic side lighting.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Just the color is so fantastic. The shapes and the color, and then add the movements, the way that they've handled it visually is still influencing me. I love it.
Yeah, it's very painterly, and the color selections. I mean, that's the one thing I keep noticing more than anything else is the color schemes to that series. It's lush, for lack of a better word. It's gorgeous. Absolutely.
There's a lot of use of shadow just in a really well done way.
Definitely. And it looks like we have a comment coming through. So our good friend Stephen Brown says, when I was coloring my comic, I had a lot of difficulty with colors due to not being used to it. Okay. Sure.
It takes practice.
Definitely. I'd say one of the big things with comic books is it's all context, right? It's like, one thing is good by itself, but does it fit in the context of the whole thing, the whole narrative, the whole deal, and definitely color is like that last make it or break it part. So I could definitely see that can be a challenge, but very cool. So What If is, as far as current things, what about like initially, like what got you?
Initially is everything in the world, I swear. That's a tough question because there's so much that influenced me, and I just reached out to a lot of different areas. I'd say probably some of the first things were the old cinema, like old Hollywood evil horror movies, like Frankenstein and Dracula, and like they're not color, but I'm saying, it had an interesting style of lighting And I think that, you know, it had for a long time when I was really young gotten me interested in kind of an Art Nouveau style that I love looking at. I never really was good at doing that, but it just always influenced me because I like the shapes that made and the way that they broke down light into, you know, very, very real solid blocks. Also, you know,
I guess you kind of had to do that with black and white because you had to make sure it was still clear, everything you saw. So lighting had to play a huge role in that.
Mhm.
Oh,
and like
totally.
the old Fritz Lang's Metropolis, that movie poster.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the movie, you know, it's just beautiful. It's interesting. So that kind of thing.
Oh, definitely. And I love that's like a lost art form, right? It wasn't just like film it and then just change it like nowadays, film something in color, then just take out, desaturate it. No, I mean there was such a technical prowess with how they lit things.
Yeah.
And like C. Michael saying too, like kind of got those great silhouettes. And you can almost feel, even though it was black and white, which scenes were more warmer and which scenes were more cooler, even though
Yeah,
it was
they did a
white.
fuzz, like a blur, you know, with some of it that helped.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I don't know. I like those old cinema secrets. So that influenced me, I think, quite a bit. And
that's
then
great.
I had a foray into, I'd say the more illustrations that I liked was a Star Wars book that I got of concept art.
Oh, nice.
Now I loved Star Wars, but when I saw the posters, there was a whole media kit that my parents got me, and it was so incredible. I just loved the concept art part.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And Jose Fuentes just chimed in about your page. He said this page looks great.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And he kind of went on to elaborate. We were just talking about the monsters, and he said Bela Lugosi's Dracula was a great movie and had a fantastic use of lighting.
It did. It was so incredible just watching it. I noticed that's what I was gravitating towards, is watching how they lit it. You know, despite the fact that I started drawing monsters from that point on, I think. And then I shifted to dragons. It was all over.
That's cool.
Oh,
Tommy Flormonte just chimed in and said, howdy, y'all. Hey, Tommy.
Hey,
hello.
Tommy.
Hi, Tommy.
Yeah, because you're talking about that light fuzz on the daylight. I'm thinking of that scene in Frankenstein with the little girl picking flowers. And it kind of had that dreamy, bright look to it.
Yeah.
Which really set the mood for what happened next.
And then it goes dark. So.
That's great. Well, for me, like as far as comic books and stuff, but real quick, Rob Davis says, "Hey y'all, hey Rob, how you doing?
Hey Rob,
great to see you." For me, definitely, as far as comic books, I came into it in like the mid '80s, early '80s. So I loved, of course, X-Men, all of Chris Claremont's run. I really love Paul Smith's work on X-Men. I feel like he had a limited run, but he's one of my favorite X-Men artists of all time. I thought he was one of the best, And then, as time went on, of course, I love Frank Miller. Frank Miller's amazing. Dave Gibbons. The thing I love about Dave Gibbons' work, especially on Watchmen, is he's an illustrator. I mean, everything is there. Every cup, every stitch, everything is there. He's just a solid artist, and that's a rarity. He's just a great artist and phenomenal storyteller.
He did a online, don't say lecture, but kind of a guide for Clip Studio not too long ago.
If you that's cool, really?
You'll find that. It should be on YouTube somewhere.
I'm gonna look for that.
But just watching him draw, he was doing some pages for the Capaldi Doctor Who. It was a Doctor Who special comic.
Nice.
So it was really cool to watch him. Yeah, he's a fantastic artist. I don't think Watchmen wouldn't have been Watchmen without him. Period.
No, not at all. And I saw him once at San Diego Comic-Con giving a talk, and I may have mentioned this before, but I thought it was fascinating because what he was talking about is he said that I think it was his stepdaughter had been expressed interest in art, and they had started doing figure drawing together and life drawing in general. And he had said something to the point of, he realized as he was doing life drawing that he had gotten to the point where he had like this stockpile of stock images in his mind about what things look like and what faces look like and things like that. And he had to kind of fight the urge to kind of just go back and draw upon that and actually see something for what it was during life drawing. And
That's
he said,
interesting,
isn't it? And he said, and that's what being an artist about is. He says it's about seeing.
restraint.
Yeah. Restraint and seeing is how you see things, is how you do art. And you think about it in any art form, right? The top people, it's their ability, their observation, about their ability to observe and perceive is what's the highest level. It's like if you see one of those chef shows, they'll eat a cracker, and to me it's just a cracker, and they'll eat it and they say, I taste some grain from, I think, that one south of France farm, and I think it was cooked at this temperature, and it's that observation skill. Or they're
golly,
or they're being pretentious, right? So yeah, I think for me then, that's the American stuff. Definitely Japanese anime and manga had a big, huge influence on me. And Katsuhiro Otomo, who did Akira, is like one of the most phenomenal.
That was an influence for so many people.
Definitely.
It was so different and so beautiful.
Definitely. And I have just such great admiration for Japanese manga and anime art, especially the colors in anime, how it really harkens back to the kind of woodblock prints of Japan, just flat colors.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. But just the ability to choose like those flat colors side by side to create depth. They're very masterful at that. So I'd say those are some of my comic book influences. Yeah. What about, there's kind of a time, I don't know about for you folks. I mean, I was fortunate in this sense, but like once you start kind of going down the path of being an artist and actually creating artwork and getting into the industry or what have you, then you start to there's a synchronicity that happens where you start to meet people who are kind of your mentors or kind of influence you further. Does anybody have any experience like that, or people of note, or things that kind of influenced you once you
I
kind
can
of
say my very first professionally was Jerry Bingham.
Yeah.
He's so professional and so prolific. And I liked his approach. I liked the ideas he had and his techniques. And, I'm really grateful that I got to work with him.
Yes. And for those of you that don't know, and you should know, but Jerry Bingham, he is I'd say he's one of the big unsung heroes of the comic book industry. And just, he's a great artist across the board. Phenomenal illustrator and painter. If you want to look for kind of a watershed moment in his career in comic books, you can look at Batman, Son of the Demon. It's a great graphic novel he did. And for me, I got to meet him. He worked in the art department at Malibu, and just an amazing artist and just ridiculously solid. But Roberta, I think you met him was it
I met him before because I interviewed him for, I think it was my senior year, when you have to interview someone who works in the field. So I interviewed him for our school. So that's when I really got to know him.
That's excellent. And he even helped me on my martial arts path. Jerry Bingham was I
believe that.
Yeah. He
I didn't know that though.
He loved martial arts, and when I first started martial arts, I was telling him I wanted to learn how to use a sword, and he just gave me this. Jerry's he's a great guy, but he's definitely like a salty dog on a pirate ship. He's seen it all, and he's not afraid to tell you that he's seen it all and that you don't know anything. And he looked at me and he says, nope, you got to learn how to train your body and do your hand techniques before you do anything with a weapon. He goes, why pick up a weapon if you don't know how to move your body? And I said, oh, there you go. So how about
good advice?
Yeah, definitely. And see, Michael, how about yourself? Was there anybody that, as you kind of started to, move into the industry or move into working on stuff, that kind of influenced you or kind of came up?
They're still here and there, but what's sad. I was telling this to somebody a couple weeks ago. What's sad is you used to be able, when you all worked in the same place, you used to be able to have those influences and people to help you out and everything. And you don't really have that. You don't have the bullpit anymore.
True.
So people like I've had my portfolio be like Rob Guillory and people like that, so who help you along here and there to say something there,
Sure.
But,
and I think nowadays with the internet, I mean, even when I say, I realize how old I am when I say nowadays with the internet, like it's something that just came up. Like, oh, nowadays I got this thing called the interweb.
Don't do it.
How many decades like nowadays with the internet? Okay, I'll just say online. Online, there's so much cool content. There's a lot of crap content, but after you sift through it, you can find some pretty amazing content on YouTube and other things. And sometimes you can almost have an odd kind of mentorship program virtually just by kind of listening to people and seeing what they've done or how they've done things, like I use Clip Studio Paint from my comic book, and Clip Studio's company has phenomenal, like every month they have seminars and videos on different things from different artists, and you can learn so much from there, so.
Well, that's what because like, for instance, when I started getting back into drawing, I went and I took I know this isn't right because I want to say genome, and I know that's not right. Gnomon workshop.
Oh yeah.
Is that how you say that?
Do you remember? You remember one of the people that either was part of the founders, came from Malibu.
Oh really? Oh cool.
Which person?
Alex Alvarez.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I heard Tommy say something about that at one time. That somebody went over there to teach and just stuff. So I'd actually gotten onto David Finch's class. I bought, you pay for a very expensive membership a month, and did David Finch's class, which, don't get me wrong, David Finch is great. But there's a lot of other things to learn first before you really get into anatomy and stuff. I wish I would have known at that point in time.
Yeah.
But what really gets me about David Finch is went through all that, and now you can go on YouTube and get all the stuff that David Finch was teaching you on that class free.
Yeah. So you got it first.
But most of it I forgot because sometimes if you don't learn right the first time, you've got to unlearn some things just so you can learn it the right way.
Right.
And so, it's like, especially when you're dealing with shape languages and dynamic shapes and things like that. So
Sure. There's that I think it's an old Taoist saying, which is you have to empty your cup before you can fill it. Right.
Yeah.
And that, the knowledge, the knowledge sometimes is the worst thing that you can have because it prevents you from getting new knowledge, right? So it's a challenge,
Makes you stubborn sometimes.
Yeah, you're like, I know that already, but no.
Yeah,
you're always learning.
And I try to, and that's why I try to do that. Like, I'll take an anatomy class here or there, just because it's like, oh, well, I already know this. But stop, because somebody will have something that you never thought of before. Or they'll say something someone else had said before you didn't realize they said it, and it'll click with you, and and it kind of opens up. Because sometimes it feels like this whole art thing is levels, like you level up.
Kind of is.
Eventually, yeah. You get to a point, and then something opens up, and you're like, oh, you just take this huge leap forward in your art that you didn't before because now you understood something you didn't.
Oh, it's like a pressure cooker, right? Sometimes you don't see the progress. It seems like you're just stuck in this one place.
Yeah.
But little do you know, all that pressure cooker is building up, and then just boom, like something skyrockets. Like I remember when I was in art college, I almost flunked out of perspective, right? I mean, it was like,
oh yeah.
And I couldn't even take perspective for illustrators. I had to join the interior design department, so that I could take a perspective class, and it was just, I was a mess. And about 8 months or so afterwards, I started drawing something in perspective, and it just started to click. I guess I just needed that extra time,
Yeah, I feel you really on that.
It is just out of nowhere. You either see it or it doesn't look right.
Yeah,
I think what I started to learn is, as far as perspective, you have to let the lines do the work. You have to step back and follow. I don't know. You have to get out. Get over yourself.
Yes.
Let
Yeah.
the lines and the vanishing point do the work. But yeah. Perspective has been a struggle. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. And I am not ashamed to admit, Clip Studio Paint, if you want to sponsor me, Clip Studio, their perspective ruler is a godsend.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
cool.
that perspective ruler. It's the best thing ever. Stephen Brown just chimed in. Stephen says, I already wanted to be a comic artist. I met Brian Stelfreeze, and he helped me by showing me how to make my characters move more organically. And I learned a lot from watching Todd McFarlane, Jim, and Rob.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's another great thing too, because these guys, you would think that they would kind of be full of themselves and they really wouldn't show you anything. And some of them might be full of themselves with other things, but they will actually show you how to draw. Like, you could go on Jim Lee's Twitch and you can watch Jim Lee draw and he'll explain to you how to do it and everything. So nobody's trying to hoard secrets. Nobody seems to be scared that you're gonna put them out of a job. Yeah.
Oh no. Totally, and Stephen adds in that he also, paid attention to the work of Todd Knock and James Reyes, and kind of like what you're saying, see, Michael. It's funny because I have my whole martial arts background, but then art, and they're both art forms, right? And we always say in Kung Fu, we say there are no secrets, right? Because like you're saying about even in art, you can tell everybody how to do it. It doesn't matter if they're not willing to put in the time and the work to make it happen. The secret is the work, right? And you can tell everybody, and out of like 100, maybe one person, if you're lucky, will actually do the work to get there. So it really doesn't. There's no reason to hold on to those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And I will tell you this much:
you're
glad that I draw for graphic design. Because it's one of those things where if you don't continue drawing, it does go completely away. The concepts are there, but your coordination and everything that you need has to ramp up with every day.
Definitely. It's a perishable skill, right? Is what it is, and Stephen Brown adds in, and I think a little bit of each of their styles got put into mind from learning from them.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Jose Fuentes says Afua Richardson spent some of her time at New York Comic Con to help me understand how she figures out perspective a few years back. And
that's cool.
That's great. And our crew is over at Daytona Beach Comic Con, and I think all of us have been to conventions before. That's our tribe, right? I mean, when we go to a comic convention, it's like, oh my God, that's Todd McFarlane, or that's Rob Liefeld. But Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld are not household names when they're not celebrities anywhere else but in that place. And so I think there's a commonality, right, where they want to share that knowledge, because afterwards we all go back to our normal lives and nobody else cares except for us.
I think that Neil Adams made the statement before. He liked it because when he goes to a con, everybody knows who Neil Adams is.
Yeah.
Everybody, they see Neil Adams, but when he walks out of the con, he walks down the street. He doesn't have to deal with the celebrity pressure of people going on the street. Oh, you're Neil Adams. It doesn't happen to him. So he likes that. Yeah, and that's true. Yeah. It's great for people who are nomads, or what's the word? I cannot remember it right now. To themselves.
Yeah.
Lone artists.
Introverts.
Yeah, we got that too.
Yeah.
No,
and then you make me stream.
and talk,
yeah, right.
And talk at the same time.
And talk.
It's like juggling.
It's awesome though.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that was one thing. You always harken back to Malibu, but Malibu, talk about the biggest influence on me probably was Malibu comic books as a whole, as a collective. Such a supportive amount of people, And what I love about this live stream is like I'm looking at Roberta's stuff. This is the same feeling I would get when I would be walking through the office and I would look over somebody who was coloring shoulder, or I would walk into the art room and see somebody lettering. It's such a great opportunity to be able to look at this and kind of witness how it's coming together. And I'm not just talking about for the audience watching. I'm talking about for me. So it's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad it helps. I think sharing it when I'm knowing that, it's getting broadcast, I'm like, I would not have done that. Why did I do that?
Just keep
So
moving,
you
keep
get to
moving.
watch the process of, which
Yeah.
is part of the art. It's like you know when you don't like it, and you know when you like it,
Yeah,
and that's part of it.
definitely. Then don't you folks find that's kind of a big part of it? There's the technical skill, and then there's just the intuition, right? Where you're like, something just doesn't feel right. Let me fix this little thing, and you can't necessarily always say why, but it just, it works, right? You got to trust yourself at a certain point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
So some of that is like this trial and error that continues to play out, and I think that is part of the process that makes it so fun, because you're learning from yourself even.
Definitely. Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
is really cool. I do appreciate that.
Totally. And I remember there was an artist that he became an animation director, Sam Liu. He did some artwork for Malibu Comics. He did, I think, one of the covers for Solitaire, but he was a phenomenal artist, and he went on to go ahead and be one of the big directors that directs a lot of the Batman and DC animated films. And he came to Malibu every now and then to visit and to do some art. He was working under Phil Crane, one of the editors there. And I remember I saw him do this one thing I thought was fascinating. He was drawing a picture for me, and every now and then he'd just take his thumb and he'd place his thumb on a piece of the picture where he had already drawn, and then he'd lift, or where he hadn't drawn, and then he'd lift his thumb back off. And I saw him keep doing this, and I finally asked him, why are you doing that? He goes, when I'm looking at the picture and I put my thumb over that area, I visualize what it should look like under the thumb.
And that's so cool.
And it's one of those things that every now and then I do now too. And it's just, that was a little throwaway thing, but it helped, so you never know who you influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, definitely. What about, it doesn't necessarily have to be comic books, but just, we'll get a little broader.
You can start with me on that one, because I have a huge influence when I was a kid.
Please.
Because my dad was a sci-fi lover, so he had a library to die for, and I just had all of these 1960s about science fiction books to look through, and the covers and the art there was so amazing. I thought it made a big impression. I mean, the stories did too, but honestly, just the cover art was really cool, with the spaceships and the robots and the aliens, and all of the way that they approached the art form of just the cover. I really loved it.
And they told so much, right? I mean, you had to say it all in that one image back in the day,
But they had such amazing atmosphere. These like bright pink sunset skies of an alien world, and I just really did like that. It captured that kind of a mood.
Oh, definitely. And our good friend and fellow Silverline creator, Rob Davis, chimed in. He says, when I'm doing sketches at cons, folks always ask, can I watch? Of course. Why do it live if you don't want an audience? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Definitely. That's one of the great things about conventions and even forms like this, to see how it's made, so special. So, and just so that Rob knows, Rob's a big influence on me on my recent comic book, because Rob, I saw him on one of our Silverline streams talking about how he does his small thumbnails, and he would have a page with all the thumbnails and all the numbers, and he sent it to us in our Silverline group message on Facebook. And I used that thing. So for every one of my pages, I had this little thumbnail that I would draw for each page, like a breakdown. And then because it's digital, I blew it up and slapped it onto the actual template. And so Rob Davis has a big influence on how Shadow Ghost is coming together. So thank you.
So
Rob.
the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. On the process. Definitely.
Nice.
And he replies, oh. And how?
Good.
Yeah, definitely. How about for yourself, C. Michael? Like, not just in comic books, but in general, are there any other big influences, whether it's a book or a person or a movie or something?
You know what used to really have a lot of influence on me when I was younger was scary stories to tell in the dark.
Oh gosh,
The
I remember those
artwork,
covers.
yes, the artwork in those was just so creepy, and it captured an atmosphere in those illustrations. Forget the story; you just had to look at the picture to be scared. You could make up your own, and so I can't remember who the artist is offhand. I think he's also a recluse, so he's not really known. He doesn't really go out any. If he's still, I think he's still alive.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that was a big influence on me. I remember actually, you're talking about the old Universal monsters and stuff, and I used to check out from the school library. They had like these books that kind of told the movie, with the pictures of the movie and stuff like that. And I was a big fan of Creature from the Black Lagoon.
I love that so much.
And you still look at the character design on him, and you kind of go, "Wow." You didn't have the internet to put that together. How did you do that?
No.
Yeah. Have you guys ever seen William Stout's monster drawings?
No.
I don't think so.
Well, at least I don't recognize the name.
Yeah, just look up Bill Stout, and he's probably one of he loves monsters and he draws them so well. And I always heard this really cool story about him that he was actually pitching to do a lot of concept art for, I think, one of the first Harry Potter films. And obviously, dude had been through the ringer, so he went in and showed all this phenomenal concept art, and all the executives said, "Oh, that's great." And he said, "Hold on one second." And he walked back to his car, put all the concept art in his trunk, locked the door, and then walked back into the meeting and said, "Okay, let's talk payment."
Yeah, there you go. That's how you do it.
And Rob Davis chimes in. We were talking about that thumbnails. He said, talking about that thumbnail sheet, he goes, and that came down from Steve Rude, who does really small thumbnails. So that's pretty cool. So thank you, Steve Rude.
Yeah, I want to see that. I think I missed that.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll send it to you. It's really simple, but we were talking about secrets, right? And I was saying that in Kung Fu there are no secrets. Well, there are a couple, right? So the first question I have is, can you guys keep a secret?
No, but I'll try.
Why?
The answer is the joke is, can I keep a secret? Yeah, well, so can I. But the secrets are the things that are easy to do. Like that thumbnail thing is very easy to do that Rob put me onto, right? And those are the things that sometimes people keep secret because anybody can gain a lot from it, right? It's not the things that are hard; it's the easy things that are secret. But that's really cool. Yeah, no, definitely. I love a Creature from the Black Lagoon. For me, like some of the big, author wise, two big books two authors that really, really had a profound effect on me were Joseph Campbell, right, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and more his lectures. If you folks have ever, he did comparative religion and comparative mythology, really, just an absolute intellectual genius. And I used to listen to his lectures just over and over again. Phenomenal. And he's attributed with inspiring George Lucas to, with his Star Wars and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. His book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, is basically saying that there's this archetype in all cultures, that the hero goes through this certain path and has these characteristics. And so he's great. And the other one is
Hero's Journey.
Yeah, Hero's Journey. Yes, exactly. The Hero's Journey. And the other author that I really like is Miyamoto Musashi. If you may have heard of him, but may not. He was the samurai warrior who went through all these duels, and obviously he was good because he lived to an old age and died of natural causes. And at the end of his life, he sequestered himself into a cave and wrote down this book, a manual for his student about how he won all these battles and his keys to success. And he called it the Book of Five Rings. The five rings are 5 different elements, right? And each book is kind of explaining a different mode of strategy and of thought. And the coolest thing is the elements are like, fire, water, wind, earth. But the last book is void. In other words, antimatter, the absence of an element. because in order to have something, you also must know what the absence of it is. And it's a great book, and people have used it, for their life, how to lay out their life, how to do business. The Book of Five Rings.
I've heard you speak of that, and that is something that sounds really helpful.
Yeah, it's really
to gain
cool.
perspective.
It's really cool. It's really small. I mean, I'd say it's maybe 100 pages, if that. So yeah, it's a cool one. And,
yeah. Or you could get Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that tells you everything you need to know.
42.
42.
42.
Well, I was just thinking no lint, it came to mind.
Yeah. Well,
there's no lint in your pocket.
Well, Stephen Brown chimes in. He said, when I was a kid, I would always watch Marvel's Spider-Man and the X-Men and Batman. So many other few sci-fi TV shows were Stargate, Special Unit 2. There were scenes in Special Unit 2 where an officer of the secret police would either argue or fight a link called Carl, who is a gnome. It was always funny to watch. That's great. And Rob Davis chimes in again. We were talking about that tip he gave me. He said, if it helps you build a whole page, it helps you build a whole page that flows properly and has better spotted blacks. Definitely.
That's awesome.
Go ahead, C. Michael.
Yeah, no, anything that helps you spot those blacks better is best, really. Because that you wouldn't think that would be that hard to find those shadows and what balances the page, but you find that
I know it is.
Yeah, yeah, I bet.
And you can tell when an artist can see it and when they can't.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I was listening to Rob Liefeld's podcast, Robservations.
Right.
Not to be confused with Robert Meyer Burnett's podcast, Robservations, which came out before. So we have to give credit to Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. But he had a great episode where he was talking about a conversation he had with Walt Simonson. And Walt Simonson early on had seen Rob's work, and it says something to the effect of, I see now that you're starting to see beyond just the individual panel, but you're seeing how the layout of the page influences things, and you're seeing the page as a whole thing. He goes, give it time and you will see the whole book as one image. And that thing that Rob showed me where you have all the pages laid out, you start to see it like a tapestry. You start to see, the microcosm and the macrocosm. And you can kind of see when you're looking at all your little thumbnails, like, oh, I'm repeating this format for this page. I got to mix it up. It has to flow differently. So it's very cool.
And that's kind of what I do when I color. Also, I'm looking, at the panels that I'm coloring, and I'm like, I have to back up and say, well, did I just overshadow, now I just see boobs, and that's got to go.
I mean, that depends on the person watching it.
No, I'm kidding. I can leave it, but I gotta smooth it more.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? It's like I gotta look at, like, am I overdoing it somewhere? And you can see your individually, I would like what I did here, but then I back up and I'm like, it doesn't match this one. So, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So that's part of the process is this overall.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get a feel for that composition, for that balance.
Yeah.
And one thing that's hard for me to do is look at somebody who's been doing it for 20, 30 years and go, oh, I'm just no good. Look at it. But I got to remember, they've been doing it for 20, 30 years. It takes time.
Well, and some of those people that are so good, I still have a hard time distancing myself and then looking at it from an analytical standpoint, because I just fall into the page. I just fall into reading it and being involved in the story. It's like hypnotic. It's hard to pull myself out and analytically look at it and go, oh, why did that work? Because I'm having so much time reading it,
Which is fine.
Yeah.
You're supposed to enjoy it first.
That was the whole purpose, right?
And that's how you know somebody put a lot of work into it, when it doesn't look like they put any effort at all. And what I mean by that is somebody that makes something look so easy. You go, I could do that. And then you try to do it, you realize you can't do that. They make it look effortless, is what I'm trying to say.
No, definitely. It's like I love watching even other media, TV shows, movies, and stuff like that. I love seeing little subtle things they do, and once you start to see those subtle little things in the visual language, you can't stop seeing it. It's like Like I think it was was it Breaking Bad, or I forget which show, but they would use the sound of locusts. Whenever something bad was going to happen, you'd hear like the faint sound of locusts in the background, and it was so subtle, but it got you into this mode, you know,
Oh, yeah.
that you knew something bad was going to happen, and then now you just listen for it. Oh, something bad's about to happen, you know.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or just something placed out in your line of sight to kind of give you a visual cue. It's weird how an artist plays with all the senses, I think, and it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a comic artist, if you're cinematography or whatever, you play with all the senses. You want everybody to have maybe something even triggers a familiar smell to them, for that matter.
Yeah,
It sounds
yeah.
weird, but it does. That's kind of it's kind of the argument of digital versus physical copies, for that matter, because being able to touch something, being able to smell something adds to that remembering it down the line. So you know.
So I can describe that, just sharing a comic with a kid, right? And watching what they're looking at. It's like they're touching the page and then they move it back 3 pages. It's like, oh, that happened, and then they go, okay, I'll finish. It's like this thing that you can't do with digital because you're just always going forward.
Right.
So like this comparison, I found that fascinating. I learned a lot about, just what you're thinking about. It's like, oh, you're putting the story together better by saying, oh, wait, was that what happened over here? Okay, yeah. And part of your enjoyment and your remembering the story, I think, comes from that, analysis that if you're touching it, you can do that. You can say, look at the art here. Oh, wow.
No, definitely. It's like I read a lot of books digitally on my iPad, but I went back to reading some books that I had that aren't available in digital. And the most beautiful thing was there was no notifications showing up while I'm reading my paper book.
That's nice.
That's
always a good thing. Somebody speaks in a bookmark.
Stephen Brown chimes in. I think this is a little bit from before, so I'm going to put them all into context. So he was talking about the shows on Sci-Fi Channel. I think Special Unit 2. He said the secret police force would either argue or fight a link called Carl, who was a gnome. It was always funny to watch, but I didn't enjoy the funny part. But whenever they got a series, I would be at the edge of my seat watching to see what happens next. Yeah, definitely. I think working with Roland, and I've had the pleasure of talking with him about writing, and him kind of giving me some advice. He loves the cliffhanger. He loves giving you that little thing to kind of pull you back in, and you can see it in every book, and definitely I think that's a skill set on its own. Definitely.
Well, what's interesting is he brings up that whole, funny and still having the cliffhanger there, which kind of reminds you of the Indiana Jones series.
Oh yeah,
because it had a balance where it was funny. There were funny moments, and then there were tense moments, and I think that's missing a lot in storytelling today. Is we're seeing a lot of just tense moments and a lot of dark and gritty, but not enough humor in there. I like stuff like Indiana Jones, National Treasure actually kind of was like that, that kind of thing. Oh, look at the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. You had a very serious story. It was going on, but you had it mixed in there with a lot of humor that kept it light and kept you interested. I think a lot of times that gets lost in storytelling.
It definitely, it's just like as artists, it's like contrast. Can you imagine somebody doing a comic book with no contrast, where it wasn't black or white, it was all gray?
Yeah.
You need those.
That has happened. Sometimes they do, the pencil, just a pencil one, not an ink.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see what's going on, though. It's pretty, but it's hard to see.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, here. Let's take the topic in a interesting direction. Okay, and you don't have to necessarily call out names, but it could be things. What's something that influenced you, or somebody or an art or a book or something influenced you, or something that made you influence you so that you're like, I don't want to do that, or that's a pitfall that I have to avoid, as opposed to something that you aspire to, something that you learn from their mistakes, something along those lines. And while you think about that, I'm going to just read this quick message from Rob Davis. Rob says, it's why the MCU movies work. They have those humorous moments in there. It's that balancing act, right? The highs are higher, the lows are lower when they're together. Definitely. So any of those kind of situations that kind of taught you what not to do, or that you learned from somebody else's mistakes, whether it's career-wise or, and you don't have to say anything about family members because we all have one. So.
Oh man, Roberta, if you want to go first.
Oh sure, I can try. I'm just trying to figure out what direction I want to take my face. So I'm like, All right. So do you think I don't know, I had an awful lot of, influences based on the time that I grew up in, where I had a lot of art and music and culture coming at me in the 80s and 90s. It's a huge shift of lots of imagination. And I'd say that, that's where you kind of define yourself. It's not so much that you look at one person as a failure, but, you start critically saying, I like that, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I get in that realm with it as an answer to the question. It's like, there was kind of like this bright and shininess about a lot of things, that they were too round and they were too overshadowed, I think. And I liked things that were, bright colors, but a lot of dark with it. But I didn't want only to have the overall picture be a jumble of color. So I felt like there was that style that kind of went away as the 70s art came up, and that kind of went away. And I didn't see that much in the 80s, except in things like, I don't know, Miller, maybe, just really high drama used in subtle ways. And how can I describe this better? Because it's not coming out right. But I'm saying there was like just people's choice of color, I thought, were usually very poor. I found, things like Star Wars and things like Aliens, and, even like Lovecraft novel covers, just had kind of this look about it of like the color was giving you an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just put a lot of color just for interest's sake.
Yeah.
And the thought about how you feel is gone. And when people get that right, that's what I aspire to. So it's hard to say there's one name or whatever associated with that to avoid. But so many people did that I was like, I really don't want to be that person that just throws color around for the sake that, characters happen to be there. I want there to be mood with it. Definitely. And a shift from reality.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. I think we kind of mentioned this before, but it's that idea of restraint, right? I mean, once you have the ability, especially with digital art, to do anything, the person who knows what to do and what not to do is the one that's going to excel, right? It's that pulling back, Rob Davis adds to that. He says it's the palette choice for emotion rather than in your face impact. True. Yeah. Very true. That's a great point. There's a depth to that. And Stephen Brown kind of chimes in about, we're talking about humor in storytelling. So it can't be funny laughter all the time, or serious and dramatic, or serious and dramatic.
Yeah, absolutely.
It needs to be a middle. Definitely. Very good point. How about for yourself, C. Michael? Was there anything, I kind of like that Roberta kind of in a broader sense. Any thoughts as far as what not to do that you learned from something?
I'll put it. I'm going to learn it. The way I would put it is this, because I admired the artwork and the artwork is good.
Yeah.
But you had a lot of, and I think Barb's called it scritchy scratchy. That was going on, and it kind of harkens back to Roberta said about the pencils earlier. If you can't tell what's going on, I feel like it's lost. If you can't tell without color what's going on, I feel like the scene is lost. And that's one thing that I didn't want to do, is add a whole bunch of detail and stuff to where it gets lost to this jumbled mess of lines, and you have to, almost like a magic eye, you have to focus to see what's going on. And I've seen that several times, and it's some of this fantastic artwork. And then of course, you have those people like, say, Bernie Wrightson, who could do it to where you had all these details, but you could tell what was going on. That's, so yeah, that's one thing. Clarity, I think, is what I would struggle for. As opposed to what I see other people. And of course, it's widely accepted. A lot of people love that art. And I do. I mean, you could see a Justice League scene where you've got Superman, Batman, and, Wonder Woman, they're fighting a squid or Starro or something.
Yeah.
But it gets lost. There's so much detail in it. It gets lost into what's going on. So,
totally.
So it's still great art. It's still fantastic art. But I feel like if I can't tell what's going on when I look at it right away, I feel like it's lost something.
Definitely. I recall I was just mentioning this the other day, but I was working on a film series, a film that was going to come out. I was doing concept art, and the person that I was working with, his name was Kamel Krifa, and he was actually childhood friends with Jean-Claude Van Damme, so he had that kind of background. And we went to see. I remember one time we always go see movies together, and we went to see. I think it was like Attack of the Clones, right? It's the Star Wars prequel movie. And we came out, and I'll never forget. It was the funniest thing. But I asked him. He's from Tunisia and Belgium, so he had a very interesting accent. And we got out of the movie theater and said, "What did you think of the movie?" He goes, "My friend, it is like too much sugar, just sugar and sugar and sugar." Right? He's talking about all the special effects. It's like if sometimes it's too much. It's like you could do so much with less. So I always remember that too much sugar, and that's kind of like, I love the 90s, but there was some comic book art in the 90s that was like,
it was
wow,
too much.
make you diabetic.
It was entirely too much, and they spent forever putting it together. It's like, golly, really.
Oh yeah.
For a page that has 2 or 3 lines of dialogue, and somebody's going to move on. It's not. Oh, this is really cool. All right, next page. What's happening next?
Exactly. And Rob Davis chimes in. Rob says, overworked, scratched work turned me off too. I go for a minimalist look most of the time. I'm now learning to add texture back in, and definitely, and Rob, if those of you seen Rob's work, he's a solid illustrator and excellent storyteller. And in martial arts, we say don't hide your flaws with speed. In other words, if you have a correct technique, it's about the timing, right? It doesn't matter if I can go fast or slow, as long as I can hit the mark. That's all that matters, right? But people sometimes are sloppy with their technique, and they try and hide it with speed. And I think definitely in comic book art, there's times where people try and hide their inadequacies with detail. Right.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember who it was that made the statement. It was a good artist, but if you can't draw it, you black it out. I can't remember who said that.
I think I heard Frank Miller say, "When in doubt, black it out." I think that was.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's funny though.
Yeah.
Which really kind of goes contrary to finding the blacks in the page.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, well, you don't look like you don't know something either. So
yeah, right. I don't know how to draw pecs. Let's just black that out.
Where's their drawing on his pecs?
This is where I do believe the internet is helping artists so much more.
Oh yeah.
Between techniques and just the fact you don't have to have a scrap library the size of your room.
Yes, thank you so much, Google Image Search. I mean,
yeah, right.
Sometimes Google Image Search, you bring me things that I don't want. But then I learned about Safe Search, and now I usually get what I want in Google. So thank you. Let's see. Stephen Brown chimed in. Stephen says, right now I'm working on a story that's based in the future. When it comes to colors, I want that dark, gritty neon look. I don't know how to tackle it. Well, I think here's a kind of cool thing, Stephen, and a little trick of the trade that that me and the folks when we used to do concept art for video games would do is pick a movie that you like, okay, and pick a still image from it. You can just go to Google image search, choose Blade Runner, right?
Right.
And then if you're using any digital, Photoshop, Clip Studio, whatever, take the eyedropper, and then just take the colors directly from that image and create a palette, and you'll start to understand how that is. Or you can, I mean, you're still going to apply it your own way. Yeah, go ahead.
There's actually something on Facebook. I can't remember. Cinema something where they've actually taken like a scene from a movie and they'll give you underneath that the color palette.
I've seen that.
You've seen,
it's
and
cool.
that's fantastic. Because don't I will rob you. I'm sure. I see that. Like I like that color palette. I'm going to take it and use it, and it's really helpful for that a lot.
Oh, definitely. And you'll pick colors that way that you never would pick, like a mauve, color, or a chartreuse, or something that you would never pick. And you start to learn. Sometimes, this is something that all artists know, and we all learned if we were in art school or just doing stuff, is you copy first and then you make it your own. So I don't mean you literally copy something. I mean, take a drawing that you like and copy it, and then you'll naturally start to absorb that, and you'll start to understand because you've now walked in that artist's shoes, right?
That's,
don't you think?
I was going to say something. I can't remember what I was going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But, yeah, well, no, because he was talking about the dark and gritty neon. And what I always enjoyed was the Fifth Element.
Oh yeah,
it had, but it was bright colors. You had this bright colors,
very bright, yeah.
But it still can't maintain a bit of grittiness in there too. You have to it's almost like a smoke over it. It was weird, but yeah, that's always been. I always gravitate to those bright colors, I guess, more than anything.
Definitely. And Rob Davis chimes in. He said Wally Wood said that earlier. It must be that when in doubt, black it. Oh, the black it out.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Isn't it funny how that happens? Like you'll quote somebody who quoted somebody, and now it's attributed to the most recent person, right? It's like
if you don't know,
right? But it's like Bruce Lee always gets attributed with saying, "Oh, be like water, and water can do this and that," and that's actually from 1,000 years before, from a Taoist author, right? So I always think it's funny. You could, that's the way the world is, right?
Right.
Rob Davis also goes on and says, Photoshop now has that color palette function. Need to find out how that works. I did it by accident last week.
But now it's always had a color palette.
Well, I mean, is that, Roberta, maybe you can, kind of we're seeing that, right now on your screen, right? Or is that?
I'm not using it because I can't do it fast enough while streaming.
Yeah.
So I have colors that are in folders. For instance, I'll show you. So like I know what they are, but you can make subfolders for them too.
Okay.
And you can name the colors if you feel like doing that, and make them global so that it's on the cloud with you and the colors go with you any place you open up Photoshop. So stuff like that, But the most important part of it is that you can see the relationship of the colors. If you make like a range of a particular tone, and you're seeing it, next to itself, and you're like, wait, this looks a little bit too gray for me, so I'm going to have to decide like how to alter the color. When you see them all together like that, the palette helps. I think
cool. That
way you don't have to do what I'm doing on stream, which is mixing it and looking at it and go, oh.
That's really cool. I like that. I was watching a TV series, and it's called The Heavenly Sword Dragon Saber. It's like it's like the Chinese Lord of the Rings. And I started to see that they had a color palette for all the costumes. All the costumes where they would take they would have one secondary color, like a purple, and then they would have an accent, which was either the red or the blue, the color that makes up that color, and then a complement. And they had figured out this formula. And as you watch the series, you could see every time, he has blue, then he has green and yellow, something like that, And that's just really cool. Stephen Brown elaborates. He says, when I was creating the story, I thought of a cyberpunk theme, and movies like Blade Runner and Tron popped in my head.
Yeah.
Great examples. And
I could see those being married together.
Absolutely. And Rob Davis says this was, I think, a dropper that you sample a photo or painting and it builds a palette from it. Oh, that's cool. So kind of like automatically kind of builds the palette. That's really cool. That's
well,
neat.
I can say if you have, I will ruin my art for a second. So if you have, like, if you blur the hell out of something, the colors start mixing a little bit, and you can see the definition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so it gets all of the colors. Like you can choose all of them that way, and you can turn it into, you know, there's other filters in Photoshop for that also. You know, like you can facet, and then if you pick it, I didn't. It's small. Okay, so but you can turn it into small bits of individual squares.
Yeah.
Right. And that works on any photograph if you want to turn it into squares.
That's great. You know, I loving that.
I want to use a better angle, something with more color in it.
If you could go back to the, I just noticed something really cool that I like that you did is, so you have Demon, he's dodging that punch and he's moving his head sideways.
Yeah, he's bobbing.
Yeah, you guys kind of nice sunburst color. But what I love is you kind of took this kind of complementary color for the actual speed lines. You know, that kind of dark,
to
greenish blue,
get darker.
Pops. You know, and I love that kind of when you know this is kind of things where I'm reading a book or I'm seeing Roberta doing. You see those kind of details and you go, oh, that's somebody who actually cares about what they're doing. Because
hoping that someone notices like you. Right?
Yeah. Because, I mean, here's the thing, right? Even if you don't, whoops, sorry, there's my face. Even if you don't notice, you feel it, right? I hope so, articulate it, but you should be able to feel it, right?
Right.
You know? Yeah.
That's why I say we're finally getting to a point where we're starting, because a lot of times your superstar artists or whatever were pencilers, but you didn't realize how much the colorist or the inker at that time, what have you, put into to make it actually look really good, to make it look fantastic, you know. Definitely. And you kind of look at some of these books as like they're coming out with, you know, Batman black and white. It's like, okay, this is cool, but something's missing. Oh yeah, it's the color. That's the problem.
No, I don't mind a black and white.
No,
at all. I actually really love them, but I think, you know, as a colorist though, it's kind of like you have this power to ruin the artistic vision that, you know, it makes you really feel kind of more weighty.
Well, let me say what I mean. As, for instance, I'm thinking specifically like Jim Lee's Hush in black and white. It wasn't made as a black and white comic. It was intended to be colored, is what I'm getting at. And then you take away the atmosphere of the colors from it, and it doesn't hold the same weight that the colored version does. That's what I mean. I'm not talking about something that was meant to be black and white.
Right.
You know.
You know, I love the teamwork, the camaraderie, the communication when you're kind of doing something like that. It's like when I was doing the coloring for some of Malibu stuff as a color designer, we used to call it, right? Color designer. You'd actually do it. It was funny because this is like at the dawn of digital. So you'd have one person that would do everything by hand as a guide, and then the teams would actually translate that idea into the digital format. But I was working with Joyce Chin. We did a comic book called Comic Zone, I think it was called. It was based on a Sega Genesis game.
Which one?
Was it Comic Zone? I forget what it was. It never got released, but it was called Comic Zone. And it was the video game for the Sega Genesis was a guy that got trapped inside a comic book. Was kind of the idea.
Oh,
that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, and it was very 90s. I mean, he had like the big black, circular glasses, and of course a long flowing blonde ponytail with shaved head. You know,
very 90s.
Yeah, very nice. So 90s, and I still remember the two things that I thought were really interesting. The first time I was coloring it, I was doing everything because I wanted to, show off that I could color, and it was me, and I'm supposed to be second to the pencil. And she kind of told me, she goes, your job is to kind of step back and kind of elevate things, not to take over stuff, you know. And it was like that was really true, and I'm like the supporting person, and so I took that cue. But then when I did the second issue, I'll never forget, she had a one page where it was just this glorious sunset. It was a splash page, and this guy standing over a huge alien mountain landscape. And so I got to color it, and I got to go to town, and I was talking with her on the phone. I remember she goes, I set that up for you, right? That was for you to shine. That was your moment, right? She yeah, and it was just so cool. That kind of dialogue that you can have, and that kind of relationship when it's a really cool creative team, So, fun stuff. Definitely. Well, as far as let's see, we talked about influences for comics.
Oh, I have another one just recently. So we were talking about color, and I was bringing up that I think the Matrix was a big one for color. Yeah. For like they had the color was part of the feeling of what world you're in.
It's funny you said that. I just showed my daughter that movie last night.
Oh,
but yeah, because I remember green. That's what I remember from the Matrix. Is it's kind of it's almost like a monochrome green.
Yeah,
to it, but it still had it was still color, other colors, but this is monochrome green is all I remember. But the Matrix.
Totally. Definitely. Rob Davis is looks like he signed off. He says, "Hate to leave such a great discussion, but I have a really early morning appointment. I'll have to watch the recording. Have a great night, all." Rob,
thanks, Rob.
Yeah, good luck at your appointment tomorrow. Such a pleasure to see you, sir. And next time, let's try and get you on the show with us if you have a minute. I know
That'd
sometimes
be great.
if you need to duck out, you can duck out halfway through the show. But we would love to have you on here. You're a treasure. So have a good one, Rob. The Matrix movies were really cool, and I like gutsy stuff like that, like consistency, right? They went with that green tone, and they stuck with it. Man, did they stick with it.
They stuck with it so hard. But it's like its own character.
True, right? That's very true.
And you knew where you were.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Well, I think they were trying to match it up with that feeling of the green text. If you're being in the Matrix, so the whole thing.
Yeah, your computer.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
See?
That's
a good point.
It doesn't look like they're really following that too much with the new one. From what I see on the trailer, it doesn't look as green.
Well, the thing that's interesting is I heard somebody describe why.
There might be a reason for that.
Probably.
Well, they said if you watch the third Matrix movie, right, that's when the whole Matrix gets shut down and then it gets rebooted.
Yeah, they had to reboot. Yeah.
And they rebooted as a more pleasant version of the Matrix, where the humans and the machines resided place to place. And if you remember that last shot of that movie, it was this beautiful green sunset, right? It was like the yellows and reds, and it looked like San Francisco, right? And so they were saying that. So I think that's what they were trying to go for, or somebody messed up. I don't know.
that may be because I can't remember. It's been a long time. I'll probably watch it in the next couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. But it was the Oracle and the Architect, wasn't it? They were kind of sit there discussing humankind and what they're going to do. Yeah. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's kind of what they're going for. I'm curious where they're going to go story wise with it. Where do you go after you kind of set everything?
Well, it's rebooted. It's the multiverse again.
Oh,
you do whatever you want.
Another multiverse.
Don't you think in a tremendous time where the word multiverse everybody knows? I mean, that is such a geeky, super niche thing, right? That we know. Right?
It was our thing.
Yeah.
It's like, wait till they get to the point where all the multiverses come together and collide and destroy and have to remake everything. Let's see how you like it then.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, they kind of did in that What If with Doctor Strange.
With Doctor Strange, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And they said that's canon, so we'll see.
Well, Stephen Brown chimes in. He's talking about the Matrix. He said, I learned of the Matrix. They used the green to tell you were in the Matrix, but when you see blue, you're in the whole other world. True.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But it's not. That's interesting because it's not a huge contrary where you're in green and then you're in red. You're in green and blue kind of they're very warm
Very
colors.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Or cold colors, not just warm.
Yeah.
But,
And that's interesting because if you want to, this is probably reading it too much, but you think about it, right? Green comes from blue and yellow,
mm-hmm.
right? And if blue is reality, blue influences the made up world, But
you just got so deep there.
I got so deep.
That's not far fetched, though. Yeah,
I like it.
I like it. That might actually.
I might be part of it.
Yeah. They do put that kind of thought into it,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I like that.
Yeah, let's run with it. I'm saying it's canon.
Let's run with it.
It's canon. I've officially spoken for canon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think the Matrix was such an influence. That's the thing. Sometimes things are so influential, and then they become parody, right? And then they get parodied to death, and then they're no longer as cool, And that's the thing you risk making something so influential, I guess.
And see, that's what I told my daughter last night. I said, "You haven't." She didn't know what it was. She had never seen it. She's 16. I said, "Don't watch a trailer. Don't watch anything about it." I said, "It's not going to have as much impact on you as it did on me back in 1999 when I went to go see The Matrix. I didn't know anything about it. Somebody said, 'You got to see this movie.' Went in and and had my mind blown because I didn't know what it was about, right?
Yeah.
So, but for her, it was good. But there's been so many parodies about it, and there's so many things. She's like, so is this where the whole robot simulation, we all live in a simulation theory comes from? I said, it's not necessarily where it comes from, but it definitely made it popular.
Sure.
So.
No, totally. I listened to, I don't know if you folks ever watched the YouTube channel Midnight's Edge. Is anybody familiar with that?
No.
Phenomenal. I recommend everybody check that channel out. They talk about a lot of behind the scenes kind of things and the politics in Hollywood, as well as the creative things and stuff like that. And they were talking about. They were talking about one of the guys. His name's Andre. He's from Norway, and he didn't grow up with Star Wars. So he saw Star Wars at a later time in his life. And so he actually wasn't impressed with the original Star Wars because he had seen everything that was derivative of it before. And so he doesn't have that attachment that everybody else on that show has. And it's just interesting. It's kind of like that. You had to be there kind of situations, right? So.
Well, it's the Norman Bates. It's a spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen Psycho, but the mother is Norman Bates. And I would never, that movie was around way before I was born, 15, 20 years before I was born. But I always knew Norman Bates, it was his mother. Yeah. So it would never surprise me like it did people who actually saw Psycho for the first time.
Totally.
So, and I feel kind of lost about that. I'm kind of torn up.
It broke you up.
Yeah, right.
Even if somebody explains it to you, like, okay, well, it's still not, you don't have that emotional context, right? There's no way. Yeah. No, that's very true.
Well, I was trying to explain like Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I went back. Spoilers. I went back and watched Empire, and Empire's okay. Yeah. But I think what made the impact of Empire was that scene that kind of blew everybody's mind. And but for people nowadays, that's not going to be anything new or impactful, as everybody knows. You always hear it, always misquoted, Luke, I am your father. That's not how it goes, but whatever. Not nitpicking.
Well, and sometimes people hear that they know the quote, they just don't know where it's from, right?
Yeah.
So, there's that too, like teaching martial arts. I have quite a few students that are younger than me, and the funniest one was I was trying to explain. One of the students I was trying to explain how you're synchronized, right? I had students doing a performance where they were all moving together, and I found some old footage of the Four Tops, right? Which all black group, right? And I was showing to students, it's black and white, clearly from the 60s, right? And I showed this to one of my students, and I said, like how these guys are all coordinated. So they move at the same time. And he goes, are those the Backstreet Boys?
Oh God.
Oh my God.
And it had no context, like time. I'm like,
That's so funny.
there's a big gap between the Backstreet Boys and the Four Tops, but you know.
But not for him. That's the
Not for
sad
him.
thing.
Not for him.
If somebody says the Backstreet Boys, oh, you mean that group for 20 years ago? What?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's ancient, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what
If
can you?
only the world went back 20 years only.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly. Definitely. Well, yeah.
But I mean, we're not done with these storylines. You know, they're still
Mm-hmm.
so well played.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. So I am looking forward to seeing how the next Matrix movie, you know, comes
Mhm.
together. You know, it should be interesting. Yeah. You know, I'm just happy that I live in a world where we get all this cool stuff. I know sometimes it's hit or miss with reboots and things, but I am still happy that we get to see these kind of cool franchises, you know. So
I'm looking forward to Dune.
oh gosh, doesn't that look good?
So good.
It looks so good.
Looks great.
Yeah. It got released in Europe already, in some places in Europe already. They already
Yeah, I'm
seen it.
trying not to look at the reviews.
Yeah. Did you folks ever see that documentary, Jodorowsky's Dune? Have you ever seen that documentary?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's so good. So we were talking about influences. This is a good one. So
Mhm.
Alejandro Jodorowsky, he's a very out there filmmaker. Did all this kind of experimental films back in I think the 70s. El Topo, Santa Sangre. He's from Mexico.
Yeah,
He teamed up a lot with Moebius to do Call and other books and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
And he originally was going to do Dune in the late 70s or early 70s, I should say. And he got almost to the point where it's funded to make it. And if you watch the documentary, it's about his version of Dune. He had Salvador Dali in it playing Baron Harkonnen. No, he had Salvador Dali in there. I forget playing which person. He had Orson Welles playing Baron Harkonnen.
Oh, my
in it.
gosh.
Orson Welles.
Yeah, he actually
That's interesting.
he got Orson Welles, and he talks about how he got Orson Welles on. He says basically he took Orson Welles to his favorite restaurant in France and told him, I will hire one of the chefs from here to cook for you every day on set. And so Orson Welles was like, I'm in. and he got Salvador Dali because Dali was very picky and didn't want to do it, but he loved Dali's look, and he eventually said, I'll pay you X amount of dollars for this amount of footage. And he says, if I do that, then you can say that you make more money. You make $1 million per hour or something like that, even though he was only going to use him for 10 minutes or something like that. And so because Dali had the bragging rights, he said, okay, I'll sign in on it. And Moebius did all the character designs for it. And a lot of the things that we see in modern sci-fi cinema come from this film. Like the idea, he had scenes in it storyboarded where the characters would look through these goggles and you would see crosshairs on them, right? Which we all know from Terminator and other things. But he was the first person to do this, and all these things from this film.
How did I not know this? I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really fun.
More to look up.
Yeah, really. Yeah, definitely. There's not enough.
There's never enough.
Talking about
That's
that kind
so
of thing.
cool. Thank you.
It's, I guess, that was one of my influences as far as visuals are concerned. It was Terry Gilliam.
Of
And a
course.
lot of stuff he's done. Yeah,
Oh,
he was
yeah.
supposed to. They had tapped him to do Harry Potter at first, and that would have been fantastic. That would have been fantastic. It probably would have gotten ruined because poor Terry Gilliam has bad luck.
Yeah.
It would have been fantastic. But like Brazil, that's always a big influence. Of course, 12 Monkeys, things like that. So
yeah,
he's always been a fantastic. And of course, you have his Monty Python stuff, but he's always been a fantastic visual storyteller.
Yeah, definitely. Even in like movies that didn't have as much fantastical stuff, but would have little parts like The Fisher King.
The Fisher King, yes, absolutely.
Gosh,
Yeah.
those scenes were just phenomenal, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think at that point in time, if Robin Williams had done some dramatic roles, but I don't think he had done as much dramatic. Let's see, he had The World of Garp.
Yeah.
But he wasn't
That's
really
right.
well known when that came out, I don't believe.
Oh, I knew
As a
about
comedian.
him as Mork and Mindy.
As Mork
and Mindy.
Of course, Mork and Mindy, right?
Because they were reruns when I was a kid.
But he just pulled so much out of Robin to show in those scenes. You know, the night in the alleyway, or was it under a bridge or something in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
The Black Knight or whatever it was that
it's
kept coming after.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
I loved Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
I do. Yes.
Oh, it's so great. Yeah.
Yes.
I can still watch that movie to this day, and the artistic
holds
merits
up.
on that are so high. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is a singular movie. That is an out there movie.
And it's a miracle that he was able to finish it, because he really didn't have the budget to finish that movie at the end of it. Yeah,
Really?
that's why you had all these fantastical scenes, and you kind of had I wouldn't say anticlimactic ending, but it was kind of a oof ending to it, because he'd run out of budget. That was one of the reasons why people didn't want to hire him, because he would run out of his budget, or there would be some kind of disaster that would happen. It was just constant. He was trying to do, and he finally came out with it, but the Man Who Killed Don Quixote.
Yeah, there was an early version, right? That was supposed to be with Johnny Depp originally. I think.
It was. There's actually a documentary out there about how everything went wrong. Everything went horribly wrong, and in fact, I think the actor who was going to play Don Quixote, it was a Spanish actor, actually died, and they had the guy from Brazil. I can't remember what his name is. He's in a whole bunch of Terry Gilliam movies. Actually played the Don Quixote part and had Adam Driver now. But yeah, they had a whole documentary about what happened on that set, and with Johnny Depp and everything. So yeah. Or look at what's the other one that he had? It had Christopher Lee. Oh, the one with Heath Ledger.
Yeah. I was about to say that. Was it
the Imaginary? Dr. Parnassus' Imaginarium, I think it is. Something.
Yeah, he died, and they had to just replace him in a surreal way or something with two other actors.
Yeah, it was Johnny Depp and Colin Farrell. I can't remember which one. That's right. Yeah. I can't. There's so many Collins at one time that came out. I can't But yeah, that was fantastic. Of course, he kind of got into a little bit more CGI.
Yeah.
On that, but
he has such a cynical voice, but at the same time, there's a positivity, right, and a sense of wonder. For a guy who his artwork just reeks of cynicism at the same time. It's fascinating,
But he rebuked his American citizenship.
Oh, really?
He's not an American citizen anymore. He left.
Well, we didn't
like in the 70s. So yeah, he's political, but I like his stuff. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I heard he was tapped to do Watchmen at one point, many years ago.
I can see that. I can see that.
I would love to have seen his version of Watchmen. So very cool. Yeah, definitely. Well, how should I say this? Any influences in terms of things that we might know, like any music or things like that influence you or kind of drives you, when you're working on stuff or inspires you? It may not be directly in the same vein, or anything in that regard for you folks?
I like movie scores. I like a lot of sometimes some anime soundtracks for that matter.
Any particular ones that you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I'll throw it out there because I'm sure everybody said the same thing. But I'm Yoko Ono and the Seatbelts with Cowboy Bebop. The Cowboy Bebop soundtrack, I could just put it in and listen to it all day. That's one. I was not a big anime fan. I'm still not necessarily a big anime fan, not compared to some people. Sure. But Cowboy Bebop really bridged that gap for me, and a big part of that was just the jazz and everything, the music, and there. So. And some stuff that's just instrumental here and there.
Yeah. How about for yourself, Roberta?
I think I'm gonna call it quits on the.
Yeah, sure.
On the drawing.
Sure, we're winding down.
All right. Well, I got somewhere. I got her. I got that part.
That's so cool. I like that.
Thank you for watching, and see what I can
take that off and hope we can get Woba back on the stream at some point, because Woba does great artwork there and very insightful. Cool.
Is that gone? Okay.
Yep. We're
very good.
We're
very
back.
good. Yeah, I love watching Woba.
Yeah. Woba's awesome. Woba's one of the people that started out kind of as a fan of the stream, and then all of a sudden he's one of us, which is really is really cool. That's one of the fun things about Silverline. Yeah, as far as music for me, like, yeah, definitely scores. I love and then it just went by me. Oh my gosh, I was just listening to a soundtrack the other day. It was actually the Lone Ranger soundtrack from the recent movie, with Johnny Depp.
Okay.
Gosh. Anyways, I have it on my phone, but
Oh,
I should
that
remember.
sounds fun.
Yeah, it's actually a really good soundtrack, and I actually really like that movie a lot. Oh, Hans Zimmer, yeah, the Hans Zimmer.
Oh, okay, yeah, Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, he's phenomenal, so definitely that, and I like the soundtrack to Akira is really out there. If you ever heard that soundtrack, they have like the booklet that had all the notes about it, and there's just surreal things that they did in there where they would repeat the names of all the characters and then multiply that in speed so that it became like a hissing sound in the background, things like that. So
yeah,
very good stuff.
That is really interesting.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I like
stuff that adds that atmosphere that you don't even realize.
Definitely. Was it called backtracking, like backmasking or whatever? I don't know if they used to talk about that, where they would say things backwards and you play the record backwards. So,
right.
Yeah.
The Led Zeppelin album about worshiping Satan. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was hearing the kind of funny story. I was listening to a book on audio tape or something talking about sales. When you make sales, they said, try and repeat the word yes. Get the client to repeat the word yes as many times as possible. Wouldn't you guys agree?
That's hard.
So I listened to this thing, and they were saying that like a good salesman can get somebody before they close the sale to say yes a billion times. They'll say, "It's blue out. The sky's blue." Yes. I like your shirt. Is that your favorite shirt? Yes. And then it puts you in that mindset, right? Subliminally to be.
Yeah.
So
I've heard that as a tactic. So have you heard the original, or remember the original Ghost in the Shell soundtrack?
Yes, that was really
that
good.
was so influential at the time. It was haunting. Yes, haunting.
Yes.
It was so creepy.
Yeah.
And,
I think,
and it was just off-putting. You're just like, oh, you just feel like there's something wrong. And that was so good.
Oh, totally. I think the creepiest kid ghost is a Japanese kid ghost. Let's be honest. If you've seen,
oh yeah,
totally.
Definitely. Yeah, I forgot about that soundtrack. That soundtrack was really good.
So I'd seen something where someone was tying a relationship to some of the sounds in Us, the movie, to that, like had some reminiscent feel to some of the, like that chanting they do at the end.
Yeah.
And throughout, like it had some kind of influence there.
That makes sense. I heard if there's a documentary with Alan Moore, and if you folks have seen it, called The Mindscape of Alan Moore, and it's just fascinating. And he says some really deep stuff. One of the things he says in there is he talks about, he says he's a magician. He talks about magic, and he says that artists are really the real musicians. He goes, the real magicians. He goes, because you use, especially comic books, you use images, symbols, and words to create an altered state of consciousness. And he goes, that's really all magic is. And he goes, that's why they call it, when you write a word, you spell it out. And you just go, oh man, this guy's twice as creepy and twice as cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, Stephen Brown chimed in. He says, to help with the tone when I'm writing comics and drawings, I would listen to music I think would fit the story or theme. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, definitely.
I've done that a couple times. Definitely helps.
Yeah.
I know there's something about music that you lose yourself in it, and you're not so much into yourself that you can put more work in. I guess that you're kind of surfing an emotional wave, man. That kind of thing.
No, that's true, because you get kind of deep into the kind of esoteric thing, right? Everything's vibrations, right?
Yeah.
And so the music that you listen to vibrates at a certain frequency, which in turn, we even talk about color, right? We always say yellow and black, two strongest colors to put for visual stimulation, because they vibrate at a certain frequency. I don't know how they do, but I've always heard that.
Yeah.
So definitely. Well, I think if you guys are good, let's wind down, and then we'll wind down. We'll finish up the show, and then I'm going to go ahead as we close out. We're going to go ahead and play again the trailer, the video, I should say, for Kalis. Again, please check it out. We always appreciate everybody helping us get funded, for supporting us. Personally, I really, really, really enjoy Kalis, and I can't recommend it highly enough. Brent did a great job writing it, and it's one of my favorite titles out there. So feel free to check that out. But before we get to that, let's go around and have everybody kind of talk about themselves and where people can find you. Give me 1 second. I have some things here where I think I can throw up on there. So let's go ahead and let's start with C. Michael Lanning. C. Michael, where can folks find you?
If you can see right there, my link tree is C. Michael Lanning. That'll link you to my Facebook, DeviantArt, ArtStation, Instagram, and Twitter, all right there in one place. So, yeah, just go to Linktree/C. Michael Lanning, and you should be able to find everything you need.
There you go. Excellent. And
That's
Roberta,
great.
where can folks find you online?
Well, you can find me on Facebook under Roby Conroy, and also on Instagram. So you can look for me there, and probably on the stream on Sundays.
Very good. And for myself, you can find me. There's two places you can find. For my martial arts, you can find me as Tiger Crane Kung Fu on Facebook, Tiger Crane 805 on Instagram and YouTube. And for my comic book, Shadow Ghost, it's Shadow Ghost Comic on Instagram and Facebook. And that's great. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Until next time, I didn't put it out there, but I have my comic book. Until next time, make mine Silverline. There we go. There we go. Right there. Right there. And stay tuned for this important message about our current crowdfunding campaign.
Hi, welcome to the crowdfunder for Kalis. I'm Roland Mann, and I run Silverline, the genre-spanning independent comic and graphic novel publishing company. And I'm here to tell you about Kalis. So come with me, let me tell you the story.
Hey everybody, my name is Brent Larson. I'm the creator and writer of the Silverline comic book Kalis. We very successfully launched issues 1 and 2 in the last couple of years. And I'm really excited to announce that in September we're going to be launching issues 3 and 4 simultaneously. The story is about Scott Anders, an astronaut who went up into space in the 60s on a mysterious mission for the CIA before disappearing. But he has reemerged today, seemingly not having aged and also a little bit invulnerable. In this story, in issues 3 and 4, you'll learn more about where he came from, why does he want to go back, who's the group that's trying to keep him here on Earth, and also what the word Kalis actually means. I'm sorry it took me so long. Some of you are thinking, hey man, that's a really long time to wait around for a comic book story to wrap up, to which I say, I totally agree, which is why we're also going to be launching a trade paperback that has all 4 issues in it. I hope you enjoy this story, and I know you'll enjoy Louis and Leandro's art. As always, it is gorgeous. I love it. So thank you again for your interest and for your support, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.
Science fiction, action, super stuff. You're going to want to check it out because you love that kind of stuff. You know you do. If you're new to Silverline, I got information I got to tell you. We've run 11 Kickstarters and successfully printed, shipped, and fulfilled all 11 of them. In fact, we're only like 2 weeks away from fulfilling our 12th one. So we know how to do this. We know how to make comic books. We know how to print them. We know how to ship them. In this day and age of unfulfilled crowdfunders, both on Indiegogo and on Kickstarter, I need to let you know that. You guys need to know that your pledge is secure with us because we're going to get you the content. Now, we hope you like the stuff, but we're going to get it to you. So please consider backing Kalis because you're going to get some cool stuff. And if you can't back, please consider sharing it. If you like comics, put this into the hands of folks that you know who like comics. We love comics, we love making comics, and we love you reading the comics that we make. And remember to make mine Silverline.